Yo, it's Joe, and welcome to another video. Today we're going to be reacting to my Disastrous first attempt at DMing by Super Geek Mike. He uploaded this a couple days ago. I saw it in my sub feed, and I wanted to sit down and react to it, so that's what I'm doing. After looking at the first episode of Campaign 2 and just seeing Matt at work, I really like to see the mindset of someone else who's good at DMing, but like where you start at, like how it was at first. Because it's easy to see Matt do this and be like, dude, this guy's amazing. But I'm pretty sure he didn't start out that way. Just like I'm sure Mike didn't start out that way. So I think this would be a cool way to get some insight on how that whole thing works and the different ideas that you come up with as a DM. Because I see like people playing the game as characters, but you don't really see the DM side of things. At least I haven't. So that's what we're gonna do. Um, yeah, let's see what this bad boy's about. Y'all know the vibes. Thank you for your support. I just had some fan art made of me, and I'm like super grateful. It's the first time it's ever happened. You should see it as my profile pic now. It's crazy. It's super good. It made like my whole day, bro. I was like, it was the nicest thing ever for free. I wasn't even expecting it. I woke up and I was like, but anyways, yeah. So it's pretty cool. I appreciate you guys. You guys are awesome. And yeah, without further ado, man, let's see what this bad boy's about, eh? Let's check it out.
When I was a senior in college, I ran my first D&D campaign. It lasted approximately 10 to 12 sessions with 6 player characters. And if you asked any of my players about that campaign, I doubt they'd be able to remember a single detail. It's not that I didn't have any good ideas. In fact, I still think some of the concepts in that campaign were pretty cool. I had a talking basilisk, the giant snake kind, not the 6-legged lizard kind from the monster manual, that had been blinded years.
There's a 6-legged lizard kind. I thought that basilisks were always just like snake, like without legs, just like giants. Whatever. I guess I'm wrong.
Before. I had an ancient coven of immortal wizards of different races, including a halfling wizard who was just a talking severed head in a box. I had a city that had been overrun by thieves and cutthroats and renamed to Bandit City. I hadn't seen Mad Max yet, but in hindsight, it was basically Bartertown from Beyond Thunderdome. I had a dwarven civilization torn apart by natural disasters and civil war. I had an army of undead soldiers who would follow the orders of whoever held a magic scimitar. And I had a great big bad guy who was trying to manipulate the heroes into thinking they were doing the right thing.
This is like so cool and so interesting to me because I know that as a DM, you kind of like you take some time, right, to build your world. Um, and it's so crazy to me how you build this world, you create these characters, your villains, your NPCs, whatever quest you're gonna go on, just in general. You don't know the specifics of how things are gonna go, obviously, because of the nature of the game. But you create this whole world, right? And it's so crazy how you can have like preparations for like certain eventualities though, like if someone dies or doesn't die, or if a character does one action or another. Sometimes you can like that like goes with your world, like goes with something that you have already written. I feel like it must be the hardest job in the world to be a DM. It's probably the most fun once you get it down and if like you know what you're doing. But sheesh, man, like I was thinking about it and it's gonna be like so much work to do.
In the hands of a more competent DM, these details might have worked really well and could have turned into a very memorable and cool campaign. But
Sounds
I made
cool.
every mistake you can make when you're starting out. None of my NPCs were distinctive or memorable. My combats were generic and uninteresting. My world was richly developed and detailed, and my story was thin and unoriginal. But worst of all, the cardinal sin of role-playing games is that the actions of my players had practically no bearing at all on the story I had laid out for them. And on the rare occasions when I would allow for input, I didn't listen to what my players wanted. My notes read more like a bad module than anything else. Very detailed in any possible choice the players could make, unless it was a choice I wasn't making for them. That basilisk I mentioned,
Oh, yeah, that's not good. That's super constricting. I see what he's saying.
he was a source of exposition. He told our players that a previous king had blinded him and that one of the PCs was his descendant. And I gave that story hook to one of the players who did not want it. She was not at all interested in playing the heir to some ancient dynasty. That just wasn't how she saw her character. And if I'd talked to her and either asked her straight up if she'd be open to that idea, or more abstractly asked what she wanted from the game, I could have been able to adjust that story so that she was more satisfied. Plot twists are fine. In fact, they're great. But forcing your plot into the backstory of a PC who is not interested, especially if they're not even as interested in the role-playing pillar of the game as you are, it's not cool, and it's not fun. The whole adventure became about setting up presentations for these cool ideas I had. The land had recently been ravaged by natural disasters, so I had this idea that hundreds of people would just start traveling together. Just these herds of mismatched, recently nomadic survivors. Hundreds of refugees, everybody carrying their possessions on their back. They had a complex system for signaling and sending messages through the herd to stop, to rest, to be alert, to sneak, to request someone come from further back in the pack. In the right campaign, that could be a great moment. The players can spend some time in the crowd and get to know people. Maybe they can get some relevant news about what's going on in other parts of the world that these survivors hail from, as these herds basically circulate rumors across the land. But all they did was show up, deliver some exposition, point the players towards the next location, and move on. A few times I did offer players choices, but they were so clearly inconsequential. They had a choice of moving through an area that was connected to the Feywild, or through the ruins of a haunted city. But I didn't give them a choice of where they were trying to get to. The story hinged on them getting through one of those two places to get to the other side to get back to my story.
Yeah,
but they
to get back to what you wanted to do. Yeah, it's crazy because, like, when he's, like, first stating these things that he's creating or that, like, whatever, you know, these ideas that he had, right? I'm thinking, like, this is cool. How could this mess up? But it's so obviously could when he breaks it down on what he did to mess it up. And this is definitely something like mistakes that I would make because I wouldn't even like be thinking about anything that way. But you have to be really considerate. Like it's one thing to want to make a story, right? And it's you could have this story mapped out to a T or all these crazy ideas. But at the end of the day, if you're not considerate to your players and how they're going to interact with what you've put out, you know, you're kind of just dismissing what, you know, their experience to heighten yours. And that's never good, you know, because then that's going to, you know, for somebody like me, right? Like, let's say I, you know, did my first game of D&D and there was somebody like this, or, you know, somebody, a DMing in this way, I would kind of be put off by playing. And I wonder if this is something that happened to him where maybe he may have put some players off during his first couple times at DMing, like until he found his groove. Like, have any of you ever experienced something like that? Let me know, because like this is such an interesting dynamic. I never thought about it this way. But you definitely want to be considerate about like the people you're playing with, because you can make this cool story like on paper, but if it can't be executed properly, if it can't be played in a fun way, you know, what's the point? You know what I mean? You're not allowing for your players to role play. You're just constricting them to like one thing. You know what I mean? It's anyways.
They just weren't invested in that. I just forced them along and kept pushing them into situations that they were not interested in. To their credit, my players did not complain. They didn't rebel against the story. They didn't go on a murder spree to mess with me. They didn't do any of the dozens of other examples I've heard of from other gaming groups online where people are in the similar situation and the players get frustrated. My friends knew that I was a first-time DM, and I think they just wanted to be supportive. But boy, even I don't remember the finale of the campaign. I mean, I remember the broad strokes. I remember there was a battle happening around them, like a war. And in the middle of the battlefield, they had to fight this warrior possessed by a dark god, I think. But man, it wasn't interesting, and it sure wasn't good. And over the course of the semester, I could tell from my players, just from having played with them for a few years at that point, that they were not having a lot of fun. They weren't connecting to the story. The main story involved them collecting these items that had been used to seal away this ancient evil, which was imprisoned but still influencing and affecting the story from within its prison. And when I ran my next campaign, years later for a completely different set of players, I used pretty much the same format. But that time around, I had actually learned my lessons, and I did a much more serviceable job, for the most part. In the aftermath of that first campaign, I was fairly discouraged. I wanted to run another game at some point, but I wasn't exactly feeling confident in my abilities. I had my shot, and I'd kind of blown it, at least with that group, and it set me back a little bit. But a few years later, almost 10 years ago at this point, I told some people at work about D&D, and I managed to get them together for a game. And I ended up running a campaign that lasted for about 2 years, although we
Wow.
also only had about 12 sessions. It's a lot harder to get a consistent game going when you're out of school. And in a lot of ways, that campaign was the one where my career as a DM was really born. My first campaign, the one I tried in college, was pretty much the same as everyone's first attempt at doing anything creative. I failed because I didn't know what I was doing. I focused on all the wrong things, and things that seemed completely obvious to me now eluded me. But the campaign that I started in 2013, which, trust me, still had its fair share of bumpy moments, was when I figured out what kind of DM I wanted to be. And even now, 9 years later, having run multiple games for multiple groups at a time, I'm still learning something new every session. But I also know that I'm better at being a dungeon master now. I can keep my players engaged and reward their choices in just about every session. And honestly, I don't think I did that even once in my original campaign.
Yikes.
So while I can still sometimes be fairly critical about the parts of my games that I don't feel are as strong as I'd like them to be, and I will certainly do many more videos about that topic in the future, I can also look back at my first campaign and learn from the things that I got wrong. But that's just me. What are some of the mistakes that you've made while running your games? What are
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm trying to figure out.
some things that you look back on with regret, especially now that you have more experience under your belt? For me, honestly, most of the moments from that entire campaign are a mistake for some reason or another. But wow, forcing the fighter to be the last scion of some dynasty that she was just super not interested in, that's probably still the lowest moment of that campaign for me. But what about you? Let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, hit the like button, and if you'd like to see more
Sure
videos
will.
like it, hit the subscribe button, and if you'd like to know the moment
Already
they come
have.
out, hit the bell icon. I post new
Already
videos
have.
about D&D every Monday and Thursday. And if you want to hang out and talk about more D&D stuff, we have a Discord channel that a bunch of members of this community are a part of. It is a really wonderful group of people, a really lovely community, and I think you'd have a lot of fun there, so come check it out. And if you want to support this channel and help make these videos as good as they can be, then I have a Patreon. The link for that is in the description below. At any dollar amount, it is a huge help for this channel, but also you get some pretty cool rewards for only $3 a month. I think it's worth it. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, play fair and have fun.
All right. Yeah, as you can see, he's got his Patreon there. That's his channel icon. That's another video, a dirty little trick to make new players more comfortable. So I might check out some of these things just to get in the mindset of like a DM, because like I said, this is like new to me, and the way that he just broke things down in the video was really interesting, because like I said, I would never think to do these things or like be as considerate. I think I would, like, everyone would like to, right? Everybody would like to make a world or make this kind of a, you know, ending goal or whatever that the players are going to want to, interact with and have fun with and explore this world and, like, do these missions and interact and all that stuff, right? But at the same time, if you're not facilitating the ability for the players to choose what they want to do or their backstory, like you said, forcing someone to be the heir of something else like that they're not interested in doing is pretty lame. And uh, like I said, this is probably like some stuff, like if I'm thinking like the ideas of being a DM, right? This is stuff that I, prior to seeing this video, I wouldn't have really thought too much of it. You know what I mean? I would think, oh, that would be cool. I'm sure they would love that. But at the end of the day, you don't know that, and you don't want to take away that ability of choice in their backstory of their character. You know what I mean? Kind of forcing your own ideas on them to make your world or your story that you're trying to make flow better for yourself, instead of allowing their story to grow organically in a fun way. There's got to be, like, I guess that give and take with it. Um, but yeah, like I said, what are your thoughts on this, and like what uh what were your moments your first time playing, or whatever, it can even happen now, I'm sure, that kind of you felt was a mistake or kind of hindered your experience. Because like I said, like I look at, I'm sure Mike is great now as a DM. He said that he started his career years ago. I'm sure he's got all these things fleshed out, right? But nobody started that way. So you see Matt, like I said, who's at this point where he can just do everything super smooth and it's like effortless, and you're like, you look at this guy and you're like, this guy is nuts. Um, but I'm sure he didn't start out that way. I would love to see a video, if it's out there. Let me know of him like explaining his first time DMing or mistakes he's made or any pointers like that. Like that would be so interesting because, like I said, I can't picture him being anything less than what he is now as far as his ability to be able to DM. But if you enjoyed this, let me know. Leave your thoughts, opinions, all that stuff down below. Do all the good things in general. Y'all know what I'm talking about. And yeah, man, stay safe. Have a good morning, afternoon, or night. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Give me your thoughts on this one. And thank you to Mike. Go check out Mike's channel. Give his stuff a like. All that stuff. I'm sure if you're watching this, you already know who he is. But in the off chance you don't, check him out because he's got some really good stuff. So yeah. Uh, peace. Yeah, peace.